Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, February 17th, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has requested the assistance from Germany in the retrieving of the bodies of Staff Sergeant Oren Shaul and Lieutenant Hadar Golden, who were killed in Operation Protective Edge in 2014, and their remains held by Hamas in Gaza. Prior to his return, after winding up a two-day visit to Germany, Netanyahu told reporters he raised the issue during his meeting with the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, because they assisted us in the past with such things. Earlier, at a joint press conference, Netanyahu said French efforts to jumpstart peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians at a peace summit later this year are doomed to fail. This because of the French administration's warnings that if the summit does not yield progress, Paris will recognize a Palestinian state. In a televised address from his Beirut bunker, Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah threatened to hit ammonia gas tanks in Haifa with missiles in the future, saying it would have a nuclear effect. Nasrallah also spoke out against Saudi Arabia for its warming of ties with Israel and accused the Jewish state of behind-the-scenes intervention in Syria. He warned Saudi Arabia not to ally itself with Jerusalem over the conflict and slammed Sunni states for moving closer to Israel. While dismissing reports of hostilities with Israel, the Hezbollah leader said the deterrence established by the terror organization was keeping Israel's aggression at bay. The UK is planning to go ahead with a new set of guidelines banning local authorities from boycotting products made in Israel. While the move is considered a success for the Jewish state, it hasn't gone down without dispute, as we hear in this report from IBA's Irfat Batat.
Israel, take note! Palestinians are not going anywhere!
At a time when Israel is not only battling an ongoing terror wave, but also a wave of international boycotts, Britain's decision can certainly be hailed as a small victory. The British government will release a series of new guidelines which in fact forbid the boycott of Israeli products.
Public bodies in the UK, such as local councils, the NHS, universities, can't discriminate, for instance, against Israelis because they're Israelis. That is something that's not allowed under EU law. What that does is it divides local communities and potentially causes anti-Semitism, and that is incredibly significant and strong statement from the UK government.
According to the new guidelines, boycotting goods by any country contradicts international trade regulations released by the World Trade Organization. This latest move follows tireless efforts by Israel to minimize the sanctions of the BDS movement, which initiated a series of anti-Israel steps, including the labeling of products made in settlements beyond the Green Line, as well as an academic and cultural boycott.
I think it's disgraceful that the British government has decided to intervene in this way, attacking local democracy and stopping councils from making ethical decisions around investment.
In our latest polling of Jewish British people, 84% of them said that they believed that boycotting Israeli products constituted intimidation of Jewish people, and 77% of them believed that they had witnessed anti-Semitic incidents disguised as political discourse about Israel. So this is obviously something that's of import to many Jewish people.
Palestinian organizations in Britain have already reacted angrily to the government's decision, including those who called the move a bullet in the heart of democracy.
I think it's just an attack on freedom. If I don't want to buy Israeli goods, I don't want to buy Israeli goods.
Is it boycott violence? If I don't go into a shop to buy settlement products, is that violent? Or is it violent to sell arms to governments, which then use them for war?
Britain needs Israel high-tech. Britain needs Israeli pharmaceuticals. 1 in 6 drugs on the NHS are from Israeli companies. Britain is competing with other countries for Israeli companies to invest here, for Israeli high-tech engineers to come and work here. And it understands that if the environment is seen from Israel as a hostile environment, as an environment that will be very unpleasant, that may even try and boycott them, then those people are not going to come here. And they understand that.
This isn't the first time that the British government has come out in support of Israel. In October of last year, a new legislation was raised proposing to withhold funds from public bodies that will campaign against the Jewish state. As of now, we have to wait and see if other countries in Europe will follow suit, and of course, how the BDS movement will respond to this latest move that pretty much took it by surprise.
Police have summoned a number of Egged bus officials for questioning over the fatal bus accident earlier this week in which 6 Israelis were killed. The 402 bus rammed into the side of a parked truck on Highway 1 near the Anava interchange on Sunday. Today, the Jerusalem District Court ordered bus driver Chaim Biton to be placed under house arrest for 21 days. Police said Biton, who has previous traffic offenses, allegedly failed to assist the injured and instead tampered with the tachograph, a device installed in buses that tracks the driver's speed. Police said that they are seeking to determine if anyone in Egged instructed Biton on how to disable the device minutes after the crash. They're also waiting for Biton's phone records after it was determined he made a number of phone calls shortly after the accident. Police were quick to respond to the brief detaining of two Washington Post journalists yesterday outside the old city's Damascus Gate, where they were conducting interviews. Police said they regret any distress caused and are aware of the need for sensitivity. The Foreign Press Association in Israel issued a strong statement condemning the arrest and urged police and other authorities to recognize their own government-issued press cards and allow cardholders to work without hindrance. The Post bureau chief William Booth and Territories correspondent Sufyan Taha were released after police realized that information from a passerby claiming the two were considering paying local Arabs to demonstrate proved false. Speaking at a press conference in Germany, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also commented on the issue.
And so what we want is mere transparency. As far as I've just been passed a note, because I didn't know about this question with the journalist. I understand that he was released. He was temporarily apprehended and released immediately. I don't even know the details of this. But we are, believe me, we do not arrest journalists. As I can personally attest to you, the press in Israel is robust, free, very energetic, and free to say anything that it wants, and you know what? It does. That's not the case in our neighborhood, but it is the case in Israel, and will continue to be the case in Israel.
Among the current wave of Palestinian violence, moves are being made to ease the tightly controlled gun licensing regulations. This week, the Knesset launched Israel's first gun lobby. Caucus chairman, new Likud MK Amir Ohana, told me why he thought Israel needed more people with personal firearms. The image of Israel as a gun-toting society is actually an illusion because of the ubiquitous armed soldiers or policemen. At the moment, only about 125,000 citizens, or about 2% of the population, have personal firearm permits. But Likud MK Amir Ohana says having more weapons in the hands of the public would enhance the sense of security in Israel.
It increases not only the personal security of the citizens, but also the sense of security of the citizens, because this way we can foil terror attacks immediately, as soon as they occur, and they occur, sadly, almost daily in Israel.
You know, in America, they have a very liberal gun law. You were going to see guns being sold to supermarkets here?
No, this is not where we are going to. We are still going to have very stiff criteria or strict criteria, but we need to make them a bit loosened, a bit easier.
While most of the attacks in recent months were thwarted by security personnel, over half a dozen were also stopped by quick-acting armed civilians. Meretz MK Tamar Zandberg is opposed to seeing more firearms in the hands of civilians because she says they could be used for crime and murder.
I think the last thing we need right now is more guns and more arms in the civilian, spaces. We already have the IDF, we have the police, we have all the trained and authorized people to use guns when necessary, and they're, as I said, trained and authorized to do so. The last thing we need is just people shooting each other, in the streets. We have restrictions, and I think we don't need to ease the restrictions. We need to keep them as they are.
The gun lobby is not pushing for the right for any citizen to bear arms like in America, but to change the gun ownership rules.
We are going to change the criteria. My recommendation to the Minister of Interior Security, Gilad Erdan, who attended to the caucus yesterday, would be to loosen the criteria to make it possible for more lawful citizens to get a firearm license. I think it will be a force multiplier for the police, for the security agencies, and it will increase, as I said, the sense of security of the citizens of the State of Israel.
The question is, would more weapons in the hands of untrained citizens enhance our sense of security or turn the country into the Wild West? Israel Aerospace Industries unveiled a new Romer-class missile that resembles an unmanned aerial vehicle and hovers in the air until it locks onto its target, collides, and destroys it. The missile was displayed at this week's International Singapore Air Show. IAI also displayed the tiny Rotem drone able to fly in urban environment. It can be operated by a single soldier and has the ability to remain in the air for up to 30 minutes. The Harpy new generation loitering attack system was also shown. The Harpy can be fired from a launching pad placed on a truck or a boat and has the ability to identify enemy radars. New solutions aimed at securing the full range of cyber threats were also on display. Senior IDF officials have expressed concern that the country's infrastructure may not be properly protected against future cyber attacks. Speaking at the Cybertech conference in Tel Aviv on Tuesday, officials said cyber warfare has become a legitimate tool, recalling that not so long ago, for some 20 hours, the entire country of Turkey was without internet. Attending the event, Energy Minister Yuval Steinitz admitted that the electricity company was facing a very serious cyber attack, but said government agencies had identified the malware and isolated the infected computers. By the end of this year, the Army C4 Command and Communications Computer and Intelligence Branch is slated to begin its expanding number of cyber intervention teams to battle the cyber attacks. Well, turning to the U.S., where Republican White House hopefuls are gearing up for Saturday's South Carolina primary. And as the campaign accelerates, candidates are busy pitching foreign policy changes, highlighting America's ties with Israel.
The world looks at our relationship with Israel and wonders, how can we get a good deal if Israel can't? Israel is a stalwart in our national security, and we've broken this relationship because of bad feelings? I mean, come on, man. The President of the United States doesn't like the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister, they have a personal problem. Well, you better overcome that. If you're dealing with the United States, you're the President of the United States, your feelings can't get hurt. You got to be, I laugh at it because presidents have always had bad relationships with their counterparts in countries where we have strong alliances. You don't jeopardize that alliance because you got a bad relationship. This is part of leadership.
Former UN Secretary General Boutros Boutros-Ghali, whose diplomatic career began with Israel's Camp David Accords with Egypt, died in a Cairo hospital at the age of 93 yesterday. The UN Security Council observed a minute's silence in honor of the man who served as UN Secretary General from 1992 to 1996. His critics claim that during his post, the UN world body failed to act in the 1994 Rwanda genocide and did not push hard enough for UN intervention to end Angola's civil war. Critics also claim UN troops failed to prevent the deaths of thousands of Bosnian Muslims during the war in the former Yugoslavia in the 90s.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply saddened to learn of the death of my predecessor, Boutros Boutros-Ghali. The late Secretary General Boutros Boutros-Ghali was a respected statesman in the service of his country, Egypt. He was a well-known scholar of international law and brought formidable experience and intellectual power to the task of piloting the United Nations through one of the most tumultuous and challenging periods in its history.
Plans by Prime Minister Netanyahu to advance the building of a tourist-only casino in the southern resort city of Eilat have been met with harsh objections by religious parties. Netanyahu raised the issue with the ministers of transport and tourism and asked them to examine the economic, legal, and social aspects of opening a casino in the city. He emphasized that the gambling pad will only cater to tourists. This is not the first time the issue has been raised. In the 1990s, similar efforts by Netanyahu's confidant, billionaire Sheldon Adelson, were thwarted due to harsh opposition from government ministers at the time. Some homegrown pride at the Grammys this week. Recognition didn't come in the name of music, but rather fashion this time around, when singing sensation Beyoncé wowed the audience in an Israeli-designed gown. The mega pop star represented the award for Best Recording of the Year, draped in what looked like a wedding dress, especially created by Tel Aviv gown designer Inbal Dror. The Shankar-trained fashion artist worked in Italy for several years before returning home and becoming one of the country's leading bridal and evening dress masters. Beyoncé is expected to perform in Tel Aviv this August. Stock talk now, and share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up today, and the shekel also stopped its slide and gained in strength against major foreign currencies. Let's take a look at the late afternoon numbers. Taking a look at the weather now, and it will be unseasonably warm and dry. Here are the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That brings us to the end of this broadcast of IBA News, and I'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same channel, to bring you the latest news from Israel. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan. Thanks for watching, and shalom from Jerusalem.